All right, welcome back. It's time to get started with the crankcase. Start putting that back together. One little correction I wanted to make about the last video there, where I was saying about the cylinder heads, how the rocker shafts go in. The rocker shafts go into the cylinder head with the flat side facing toward the outside of the head. In other words, toward the valve covers, not toward the inside of the head. Again, the flat spots go out toward the valve covers, not toward the inside of the head. I'm sorry for that bit of information I put out there. I hope you can forgive me. Okay, there it is. All back together. Most of the studs on these inspection covers were loose, except for one. And I can't remember which one it was that was still tight. Anyway, I took the tight one out and I Loctited them all underneath. Anyway, all that rocker gear is back in there now, and everything's all ready to go. I'll just keep those covers just loosely fitted on there for now to keep the rats and the bats and the mice from getting in there and trying to make a house in my cylinder head. And anyway, that's ready to go, like I said. I'm happy with that. Now, on with the crankcase. I got the crankshaft out of that big old plastic bag that I had it in to keep it clean. Anyway, it's time to fit that in the crankcase and check and see what I've got for an axial play on the crankshaft. And if you can focus on that dial indicator there, I've got about 15 thousandths of end play. That would be acceptable, but I'd like to see it closer to 5, so I'm going to make up a 10 thou shim to go under one of those new bearing races, and see if I can get it down to about 5 thou. Anyway, stand by while I do that. Okay, I've got that shimmed up now. What I've got is about 4 thou. It's kind of hard to pull that back and forth now with just one hand, but that's good. That's enough clearance. I'm happy with that. I'm going to get another thou or two clearance as well when I put the gear and the oil pump worm on the end of there. That's going to tighten that inner race in against that shim, so I'll get a little tiny bit more clearance there. Probably bring me up around 5 thou, which is exactly where I like to be. So showing 4 there now on the gauge. So yeah, when I tighten that all up, I'm sure I'll get at least another thou, so that'll bring me up to 5, possibly 6. Anyway, it's time to get the connecting rods on that crankshaft, and we'll proceed from there. Okay, crankshaft is connecting rods are going back on the crankshaft. I've got the left-hand one in place there now. That's just nice. I've got some engine assembly lube on there, as you can see. Make sure you get your bearings in the right way around. You should have a plain one on the bottom and a little one with a hole on the top to go on the top side. Remember that little hole I told you about that goes towards the outside of the crankcase. Make sure that's pointing toward the outside of the crankcase, like this one is, right? So anyway, I'm going to get that one on. This one's already torqued down to 25 foot-pounds. That's the specs in my book anyway, so I'm going to carry on with this one. Hopefully that'll torque up nicely, and it'll have the right clearance on it. I've run out of plastic gauge, which I usually use on these to check the actual clearance, but like I said, with the original grind on these, and these are standard bearings, I don't think I'm going to have any trouble at all. Like this clearance that I have on this con rod right here is absolutely perfect, so I'm sure this one's going to be just fine too. And then we'll get ready to put that and the camshaft, don't forget about that, back in the crankcases. I'll be lubing up those new bearing rollers as well when I go to put that back together, and I'll probably use something like 3-bond to put on the joints between those two cases. Anyway, I'll get back with this. All right, I got the bottom end all assembled. Connecting rods are on there nicely. Crank turns nice and free. And of course the camshaft's in there. When you put these together, especially these earlier ones, they have a timing breather that's right here in the crankcase. You have to make sure that the tabs on the timing breather disc align with the slots in the end of the camshaft. And there's a spring that goes in there between the disc and the camshaft. And oddly enough, that was not in there when I put this, when I took this apart. So yeah, I'm very careful when I take these apart because I know that's in there, and I don't want to lose the washer from up here on the other side. There's a little thrust washer there. But anyway, you know you've got this all together right when you can push on the end of the camshaft here, and you can see that moving in and out just slightly, like maybe a 32nd or 1/16 of an inch. And that means that the tongs are lined up with the grooves in the camshaft and that the spring is pushing it back. So that's exactly what you want to see. So that's in there the right way. So anyway, the next thing to do will be to get the gear back in the timing case here and get that reassembled. And then we'll have the bottom end all finished up. There now, I've got the timing side together, so that pretty much wraps it up for the bottom end. There's a few little things I wanted to talk about here. One was the oil pump, of taking that little rubber seal that goes between the pump and the timing cover off. I'll be replacing that with a brand new one anyway. So let's see, there wasn't any damage to the end of this crankshaft where the oil seal goes, so that really makes me happy. I've worked on so many of these bikes that have damage to that oil seal surface, but this one here is in perfect shape, so I didn't have to repair that or machine it or anything. So I'm really pleased with that. I've got the timing chain on and adjusted. Got about 1/8 of an inch of free play there, which is what it calls for. It's a little bit tricky if you've never assembled one of these things before, trying to figure out what they're telling you to do as far as that timing chain goes. There's supposed to be 6 plates from mark to mark. So you start off with 1. That's on your middle of your first mark. Then there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's in the middle of your second mark. The other way to do it is to count 10 pins between the marks. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 between those marks. As you can see, I've taken a little bit of silver paint marker to those marks just to make them easier to see. I also did that with the timing gear as well. I've gone to work after I tightened up the oil pump worm here and checked my end play on my crankshaft again. And as you can see, I've got the dial indicator set up there. I've got 5 thou end play on that. That's exactly where I want it to be, so I'm happy about that. So the only thing left to do here now is to replace the seals in the timing cover and slip that in place to keep the rats and the bats and the mice from building a nest in there, and then I'll be able to get on with rebuilding the top end, and I can see the light at the end of the tunnel with this engine. So anyway, I hope you like this. If you did, you can click like. If you wanted to subscribe, that would be fantastic. It would really help the channel. And then you'll see when I've got some other videos coming up here in progression with this project that I'm doing here. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Toodly-doo.